Alright. So, folks, we are back with Pontus Part 3. One good thing about the remaster I will note is that the game autosaves right before you exit the campaign, so that's very convenient, because last night I was so tired that I forgot to do that. So I just noticed that recently. And where we left off last night, or in Part 2, I was taking a real hard look at Sidon over here, because I imagine it's got a lot of nice buildings, and my spy is on his way to tell me what the heck is going on in there.
None shall see me.
Well, finally conquered Halicarnassus, and next turn I could be able to at least land on Rhodes. I'm really liking what I'm seeing at Rhodes. It's making a good deal of money. And hopefully that'll up my trade here at Tarsus and Antioch, because I am running out of places to trade with, I'm afraid. Given that I'm at war with the Greek cities and Egypt, who own pretty much all the Mediterranean here. The Eastern Mediterranean, I should say. And this army's on its way to Armenia, and I think everything is just about spent here. So that is that. Oh, well, I'm pretty sure I can beat this guy. He's only got one horse archer over there.
Sire.
This guy's got a 1-star. Liking everything I'm seeing.
Orders.
Okay, let's move along. Oh, this guy ran out of moves is also the problem. Alright. The Seleucids are weirdly being blocked off by the Egyptians standing right on that bridge. I don't know what they're doing, but they're just kind of standing there. Not really sure what to make of that. I don't think the Egyptians and Seleucids are at war anymore. I think they made peace, so I'm not really sure what to make of that.
Welcome,
Alright, buddy,
friend.
you are going to give me compensation? No?
You do not fool us.
Okay. So it looks like the Seleucids are going to take a stab at Elmira here. Alright, what do we have here? Marriage? Okay. I'm not getting any retinue for whatever reason. I thought I'd be getting a little bit more retinue here, but I guess my generals aren't sitting in towns is the problem. I think if they were to sit in towns, then they would have a better shot at actually getting retinue.
Orders. Ready to sail. Ships ready. Set sail.
Hop on, lads.
Mighty general. My liege. Ready to sail.
Need a better angle here. I'm going to use the Remaster's ultimate Q and E buttons for rotating the camera here to help myself out.
Off the.
Whoop. Whoop. That's weird. Okay, I'm going to use this army, and we are going to give the Greeks a piece of our mind. Alright, you'll love to see it.
Settlement under siege, sir.
So all he's got is these hoplites and Greek cavalry. Like my odds here? Welcome to the party, pal.
Sire.
Alright, let's see what we got here.
Mighty general.
I like my odds of moving up here. I think I can beat this guy and move up a little bit.
Sire.
I keep recruiting everywhere.
Sire.
Yeah. Oh, he's on the bridge right now. Okay.
Orders.
Thought he wouldn't be there until...
Sire.
Okay. Keep recruiting, and if this guy walks past, then I'll wreck him. My 2 phalanx pikemen.
Sire. Sire.
Alright. All hands on deck.
Sire. Move out. Sire. Move
Alright.
out.
We're gonna have
Mighty
to fight
general.
here. Parasades? What the devil? Why did you go over there? Alright, whatever. I'll fight it with a captain.
Sire. Prepare for battle. Victory.
Let's see what we have here.
Onward. Mighty general. Sire.
Let's see.
Orders.
This guy
Orders.
It's on the move.
Move out! Build
Down
tower!
here. Alright, I'm gonna go for it.
Begin the siege!
Just one. Oh, cataphract archers. Oh, no, haven't seen these yet. They're Armenia's next, latest and greatest missile cavalry, coming in at 8 morale and missile range of 170. Okay, that's even worse than the horse archers at 120, so I'll have to deal with that. Alright, let's see what we can do here.
Settlement under siege, sir!
So this settlement has level 3 walls, I believe. Yes, stone walls.
Orders!
Alright, let's get in there. It's next. Alright. Finally making progress.
My liege.
I think I can recruit a merchant there at some point. I did want to upgrade a city somewhere around here. What did I want to upgrade? Nicomedia, maybe?
Mighty general!
Okay, you know what? We're going in. Fight this kid. 8 stars. Alright, looks like this guy's gained even more Night Fighter of the capability. Alright. 1 chariot archer, so nothing to fear. Nubian. I like my odds. Alright, let's go. Time to push the Egyptians out of at least the southern flank of Syria. The Egyptians are weirdly blocking off the Seleucids from attacking me from the east of Syria. I don't know what to make of that. I've never seen that before. I don't know why they're just standing on that bridge over there.
Worse than any camel.
Whatever that settlement is.
The enemy. Fear has unmanned all my orders.
You lads are gonna have to excuse me. I haven't memorized all the names here.
Units. General.
Alright,
March.
well, let's go. Okay, I am seeing a bit of a hill that they're on. Let's see if they move up at all. Okay, they're moving up. Got bowmen. Alright. Alright. Alright, we're on the move. Let's go. We're Oscar Mike.
Forward. General. Forward.
Alright, get up there. What?
General.
Fire!
Units, march! General, forward!
There we go, there we go. Yep, they just instantly shatter.
General, forward! Units, double time! General! Units! 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 Units!
Yep, just run into those spears, Desert Axemen. You'll find that they're very long. Yep. It's over for you. Yep, just run into those spears. There we go. Very long spears.
Only by a desire to save his own skin. The gods smile upon you today. The enemy general has been killed and his men lose heart.
Alright, everybody in. Everybody's moving up. Alright, these guys are broken, and I've got no light cavalry to run these guys down,
As
so...
enemies, these men are perfect. They are running from the battle in terror.
Attack quickly! Attack
Yep,
quickly!
hunt them down.
Attack quick! Wipe them out! Attack! Attack quickly! Attack!
Come on.
Attack quickly! General! Attack!
I think that's all that there was,
Victory
right?
is
Okay.
yours, and no one can argue that it is not both well-deserved and
Well-
worthy.
I think that's 85%. No, actually, it's not. Not quite. 12/14ths.
Victory! My liege!
Alright, I'm looking at this army right now.
Sire! Mighty general!
Damascus is what, a large town? Oh, this is a large city. Oh, so that's where they went to hide. Alright.
Sire!
Well, I know what I'm doing then. The Egyptians have built... Is that a... I can't tell. Is that a paved road? I can't tell. I think it's a paved road. It's more flat than my road, so that's probably
My
paved.
liege!
At this point, that's good. Sitting at 947 gold. I think I can abandon Antioch and leave it to its own devices if these guys come over here and decide to take me on. Problem is, I've only got 3 of these phalanx pikemen in there.
Sire!
I think my priority is this army right here.
Prepare
Yep.
for battle!
Yep, and amount of moves right there.
My liege!
Right there in that mountain pass. Okay.
Mighty general!
So to attack Damascus, I'd have to turn around and...
Prepare for battle! Orders!
don't think I have the capability to take these lads on right now, so I might have to just
Sire!
head to
Prepare
Damascus
for
and take it out first.
My liege!
Bloody hell, you think this guy would... get Egyptian turncoat by now. But it's not been happening. I want to build this building so I can actually build archers, but I'm out of money. That's the problem. Okay, I'm upgrading Nicomedia here. I think once I take Rhodes, it's a minor city, I'll sack it. That'll give me some
My
needed
liege!
population elsewhere.
Aye, great lord.
Oh, you know what? While I'm at it, why don't I just conquer Crete while I've got this army at sea? What's the lad trading with? Media and Sardis, okay. I'd love to build a building, but I'm out of money to do so. Yeah, that's the problem.
Orders!
Should be able to take this next turn, no
Mighty
problem.
general!
I don't think these cataphract archers stand much of a chance against all the hell I'm gonna rain down on them in a second here. Alright, let's get this guy.
Are yours. Moving.
That might be a problem.
My
Need to
liege.
capture
Aye,
these guys and
great
then
lord.
land, because these guys might be an issue later on.
My liege. Mighty general.
Seleucid army deep behind enemy lines. So now he comes over here.
We're surrounded.
Alright, let's see what this kid wants. Absolutely not.
Bloodshed.
Well, if you give me some money, actually. How much you got? 6,000? How does that sound? Alright. Let's see how much money you've got. 8,000? Still very generous. Wow. We talking 10,000? Folks, you are about to see me break the world record.
Let us now talk reasonably.
No.
Until next time.
Time is of the essence, and I need to capture Armenia immediately.
Orders. Mighty general, prepare for battle.
I will beat that army. He's got one chariot archer.
My ears are yours. Stealth is my cloak.
Sire,
You're up.
glorious victory.
Yep, let's go ahead and enslave these kids. Base farming level of 2 isn't gonna cut it. Galloper and Exotic Slave.
Sire,
Galloper is what? Plus 1 command when attacking? Okay, great. I'd love to see it.
Mighty general.
aye, great lord. Sire! Ready to sail! Sire!
You fucking kidding me?
Run for your
Wow.
lives! Lift this here!
You can beat that army? Okay, I'll have to fight it myself.
eyes are yours. Seeing but unseen.
Okay, get in there.
Mighty General! Glorious victory!
Acquiring goods. Out of moves, sir.
Sire!
Mighty General.
My lead!
Sire.
Engage the enemy! Victory!
Sire. Mighty General. Onward.
I left off. Alright, let's get in there. Should be no problem.
Today is a day for...
On my orders! Ram!
Rem. Forward. Move out.
Cavalry! Units, forward!
Cavalry!
Cavalry!
Hunt
Units!
light cavalry!
Units, move up! Units, march! Units!
Skirmishers!
Units, move up! Units, forward!
Mercenary
Units!
peltists!
Units, move up! Units! Units, forward! General, move out! Units! Units,
Ren.
march!
Move to the gate.
Cavalry! Units, march!
Men of Crete.
Units!
Missiles! Attack! Skirmishers!
Units! Units, march! General, march!
Cretan archers.
Cavalry!
Alright, bombs away.
Cavalry! Units, charge!
Your soldiers have brought the ram to the gates!
Yep, just stand there and take it, lads. That's exactly what I want you to do.
The has done its work! Your soldiers have broken the enemy gate! The cowardly enemy have lost the walls! Send your troops and take the rest of the settlement!
Oh, there we go.
Orders
All right.
Great Lord. Hillmen.
Units!
Alright, everybody's moving up.
Units! 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 Units!
Alright, looks like this is the path.
Cavalry! General! March!
Hoplite.
Heavy cavalry!
Hoplite mercenary. Hillmen, march! March! Units! Units, move up! Units, move up! Units! Units, move up! Hoplites! Hoplite mercenaries! March! Forward!
Archers of Crete!
Hoplite mercenaries! Kill them!
Mercenary hoplites!
Yep, they don't have very long spears, which is the problem.
Hoplites! Kill them!
Mercenary hoplites!
Destroy them!
Legion archers!
Kill me! Point them out! Skirmishers!
He's still alive.
Radiant slingers!
General!
Cavalry! Something like cavalry!
General!
Forward!
Archers!
Destroy them!
General!
Attack! Attack!
Archers! Kill them!
Cavalry!
General!
Attack!
The enemy king lies dead! Charge over his corpse and
Seems to be
drive
some
his
sort of
cowardly
bug in the
warriors
game.
before you!
That you like phantom
Enemy
kill the
cowards
general
run!
before
Drive!
Awaiting your
Victory lies
Before
in
you
your
actually kill him?
grasp! And there is nothing the enemy can do but run!
I don't know why that's like that, but only Creative Assembly would, give this game one more patch to prevent weird false alarm like that.
Victory!
What? Oh crap, guys, hang on. I'll be right back. Alright, sorry about that, guys. Let's get back into it. So with the Conquest of Rhodes, our income's going up to 8,500 a turn. That is very good. Okay, what we are? 2, 2, 1, okay.
Ships ready! Prepare to engage! Victory! Ships ready! Set sail! Ships ready!
Pergamum has expanded. Okay. You'll love to see it.
Loud and clear.
This guy's doing away over here. I do not have trade agreement rights with Gauls. Something else that's critical is...
Orders? Orders?
Mighty general! Engage the enemy!
The only unit I fear is this Egyptian chariot archer. He's gonna terrify my cavalry. Let's see if I can take this guy on.
Await my orders! General!
Alright, rescue Porus. Let's see if you can rescue Antioch here from this horrid siege.
Pikemen! Units! Forward! Units! Units!
What are we
Move out!
doing here?
General! Forward! Peasants!
Peasants have a morale of 0 is the problem.
Pikemen! Units! Move out! Units! Units! Double time! General! Forward! Units! Move out! Units! Units! Forward! Cavalry! Move at the double! Cavalry, attack quickly! Units! Pikemen! Units! Move up! Destroy them! Attack! Cavalry! Cavalry! Wipe them out! Attack quickly! Grad! Cavalry! Cavalry! Move out! Hunting light cavalry! 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 Attack quickly! Hunting light cavalry! Units! Units! Double time! Units! Units! Move out! Cavalry! Units! Double time! Pikemen!
Units, move out! General, march! Units! Missiles, attack quickly!
Alright, let's see if I can get a good charge into these slinging... Oh, never mind, the skirmishers.
Pikemen!
They're attacking us! Phalanx pikemen, march! Units! Units, move out!
Move out!
General,
Pikemen! Wipe them out! Hunting light cavalry!
they're attacking us!
Pikemen!
Pikemen!
Attack! Cavalry!
General! Stand down! March, peasants!
Attack! Cavalry!
Ready!
Phalanx pikemen!
The enemy general flees like a frightened child. Now attack and break the will of his followers.
Units! Units, run! Missiles, advance! Peasants, move!
Pikemen!
Pikemen,
Forward!
Phalanx pikemen, destroy them!
Peasants!
General!
Phalanx destroy them! Attack!
Forward! General!
Peasants! Run!
General!
Attack!
Quickly! With all haste!
Wipe them out!
With all haste!
Wipe them out! Pikemen! Attack! Pikemen! Kill them! Hurry!
General!
Wipe them out! Charge! Peasants!
Pikemen!
March!
Kill them!
Pikemen!
General!
Attack! Pikemen!
General!
Attack! Pikemen!
Pikemen! Forward! General!
Peasants!
Units! Charge! Peasants!
Cavalry!
Move at the number!
Peasants!
Peasants are gonna have to chase these guys a bit.
General! Move out! Quickly!
Attack!
Units! Units! General!
Attack! Wipe them out! Phalanx Pikemen!
Units! Move out!
Attack quickly!
Quickly! March! Forward! Units! Move out! Units! Units! General! General!
Charge!
Hurry!
We're being attacked! Cavalry! Cavalry!
Units! Forward! General!
Run! Charge!
With all haste! With all haste!
Alright, they're withdrawing. They're gone.
Destroy them!
Yep,
The enemy
they're gone.
flee.
Orders complete.
Victory lies in your grasp.
Antioch survives another day.
Glorious victory!
The army I just beat, they've still got an 8 stack. I'm pretty sure I can handle that. Great.
Mighty general!
Okay, I'm looking at Damascus right now. Guess I'll have to advance in this direction.
Settlement under siege!
My eyes are yours. Out of moves, sire.
Mighty general!
On, lads. Alright.
Mighty general!
Back to sitting on 23 gold. Alright, let's see what this lad wants.
My liege. Sire, sire.
These three aren't doing anything for me, just sitting in there, so might as well move them out.
Mighty general, onward!
Ships ready.
Sire!
Looks like that. We're 23, 30 minutes.
Mighty general!
All right, hopefully everybody can see the screen. Just going to wait like another maybe 30 seconds to a minute to see if there's anybody else who's trying to log on, give them a chance to log on.
Alright guys, sorry about all the interruptions. I don't think I'll be getting any more phone calls, but how about we all enjoy this nice seminar as to how to manage our time? How about that?
My liege! Settlement under siege, sir.
Awaiting your command. Sir.
Okay, where did I leave it last? I don't recall. I think I
Alright, so
wanted
I
to...
suppose we can get started. So, hi everybody, I'm Omar, I'm the Graduate Writing Specialist at the Graduate Center, and today we're doing a workshop on time management for graduate students. This is a new workshop. I was asked to develop it because there were some folks who both students and faculty requested a workshop on time management. So because this one's a little bit new, it's possible that there's some issues that need to be ironed out with the slides and stuff. In other words, this is a little bit rough. Hopefully it'll be useful and illuminating anyway.
Oh,
A
that's
couple of
not good.
housekeeping items I always like to establish at the beginning of every workshop. So the first one is, if you have any questions at any point during the workshop, feel free to either unmute yourself and just ask me the question directly, or what most people prefer, which in some ways is easier, is just write your questions in the chat, because I'll make sure to monitor the chat and answer questions that arise there. I am planning to record this one, and hopefully, if the recording works out well, I'll post it on the website, my website, the Writing Guy website, which I'll share with you later if you're not familiar with it. But so that's one reason why sometimes people prefer to just write in the chat, because they don't want their question to be recorded. But there's of course no problem with that either. If you're okay with your question being recorded, then feel free to unmute yourself and ask any questions you have. So that's housekeeping item without question. The thing I always like to share with people, and I think I have to stop sharing the screen for this one, is the survey. So, let me put this link in the chat. Basically, with all of our workshops, we always survey students to make sure that they're having a good experience and to see what their experience was with our workshops. So I'm going to put this survey in the chat. Please do fill it out, even if you have to leave early. Like if you can't stay for the whole time, still fill out the survey based on what you saw. The survey is not a job evaluation of me, right? So it's an evaluation of the workshop, and of course me too in terms of how I present the workshop. But even if I get a terrible score on the survey, it doesn't get me in trouble with my job. And so I'm sharing that to let you know that you should be as honest as you want. If something didn't work in the workshop, let me know, because this is the sort of iterative process we use to improve our workshops, is by looking at student feedback. So if something works well for you and you really liked it, of course, please let us know. That's always great. It makes me feel good and tells me that I should continue doing that sort of stuff. But if something doesn't work, of course, also let me know, because that'll be useful feedback for me in terms of either revising this workshop or offering different workshops. The final thing I'll say is that I'll probably turn off my camera during most of the recordings, and then I'll turn it back on at the end. The reason why I do that is when I record it with the camera on, sometimes you get the little camera bots laying over some of the text on screen that you want people to be able to see, and that's not good. So I'll turn off the camera around the time that I start the recording, but I'll turn the camera back on to jump in and answer questions and stuff like that. All right. With that, I think we can get started. Let me share the screen again. Oops, that's the survey. There we go. Everybody can see the slides? Maybe somebody can give me a thumbs up.
Victory is ours, mighty one.
Oh, crap.
Perfect. Awesome. All right. Turn off my camera just for recording.
Your honor.
I'll start the recording right now, and I'll reintroduce myself.
Can I be of
for the sake
service?
of the video.
I'll see what I can do.
All right.
Acquiring goods.
So we're recording right now. Hi, everybody. I'm Omar, the Graduate Writing Specialist at the Graduate Center, and today we're talking about time management for graduate students, which is a new workshop, at least as of this recording. So a lot of the material I use in this workshop comes from Dr. David Burns, who's an expert on cognitive therapy. In fact, he's one of the founders of modern cognitive behavioral therapy. So some of the exercises in this workshop are based on his Feeling Good Handbook, which I have pictured here. So as I like to jokingly say, you can attribute all the positive elements of this workshop to David Burns' work, and any mistakes or errors or omissions you can attribute to me. The other thing is, the first half of the workshop is a little more lecture-y, like I'm introducing you to some key ideas, and then the second half will involve some activities. But I'll also ask you questions and sort of elicit your participation along as we go. So hopefully this will be engaging. So I like to start with this question of why do people not have time? Why does it always feel like we never have any time? If you calculate it, you have 24 hours every day and 7 days in a week. That gives you 168 hours per week, which might sound like a lot, or it might not sound like a lot, depending on how you think about it. But either way, you'll notice that once you start adding in work hours and sleep hours and other things we have to do, that 168 hours starts to reduce really rapidly. And so part of the point I'm trying to make here is just that it is true that we're always pressed for time, especially if you're a graduate student. You might have any number of things, which I list some examples here on the screen, right? Work, relationships, caregiving. Some people have children. Some people have to care for elderly relatives. You might have a pet you have to take care of. Obviously, sleeping and household chores. All of these things take up a big part of our time. And some of that's beyond our control, right? I mean, if we have to work to survive, or to pay our bills, that's not something we can give up, right? If we have children or other people who depend upon us, that's not something we can give up. And so some of the fact is just that we have limited time, and a lot of that's outside of our control. So what is it? What is then in our control? And that's the important point I want to get to, because it's going to relate to the techniques and stuff we talked about today. The two things we really can control are how we think about things. That's number one, our thoughts. And number two, our habits or practices in the time that we have, right? these are really, if you think about it, the only two things you can directly control, right? You can control what you do, and you can control what you think. So the first half of the workshop, I'm going to talk a little bit about mindset and how we think about time, based on some of this cognitive therapy stuff. And then the second half is going to be how we can change some of our habits based on those insights. I should also say at the outset, whenever I talk about cognitive therapy, I should clarify for everyone's general elucidation that I'm not a licensed therapist or psychologist, and I don't claim to be a mental health expert, even though a lot of the ideas that I'm drawing on come from psychology and mental health, materials that I've studied and read. But again, I'm not claiming to be an expert, so you definitely should not consider anything that I share with you to be expert medical advice, right?
Man.
If you're dealing with any kind of mental health emergency and need professional assistance or support, you can always confidentially contact me by email, and I can send you information for those resources on our campus, including CAPS and the CARES team, which are wonderful resources we have that our
A most generous proposal.
Relationship with, and we've collaborated with them many times. So I highly recommend that. I always need to sort of say that as almost like a qualification or disclaimer at the beginning.
Regretfully,
Alright, so let's go
welcome
on. So
friend.
we're going to
A
first talk
most
about
generous
thoughts and
welcome
concepts.
friend.
So David Burns, the famous cognitive behavioral therapist, offers these 10 reasons why we procrastinate, right? Why we don't get our work done. Procrastinating, of course, just
Regretfully,
means
we
not
must
getting to the
decline.
things that you want to do, wasted time,
Welcome
or,
friend.
being unproductive. And so David Burns offers 10 reasons why people procrastinate, and we'll discuss them all briefly, right? Here's the
Regretfully,
10
we
listed.
welcome
I don't need
friend.
to read all of them, but let's dive in and start with the first one. One reason why we procrastinate is because
A
we
most
put the cart
generous
before the
proposal.
horse. So let me ask all of you what seems like a silly question. What do you think comes first, motivation or action? Maybe you can answer in the chat box. And this, of course, is in reference to things that we have to get done. Like if we have something we want to get done, what's going to come first, motivation or action? Let's see.
Motivation.
Folks in the chat box talking about motivation. Right. Now, this is what most people think, right? It seems sort of natural and logical to, and see, so far everyone's saying motivation. And I agree with you. The first time I was ever asked this question or thought about this topic, that was where my mind went to, right? You got to be motivated in order to take action. But if you think about it carefully, that's actually opposite of the truth, right?
What?
Most people think you have to be motivated in order to take action, but that's usually a mistake. So if you think about any kind of person who's a professional at something, like consider a professional athlete, right? A professional athlete has to work out and exercise as part of their job, right? So do you think that the professional athlete all the time is just excited to do things like, say, ab crunches, right? Ab crunches or any kind of ab exercise? Probably not, right? It's their job. They have to do it, so they do a lot of them. And a lot of times, if you've had a job, which I'm sure most of you have had some kind of a professional job or part-time job or whatever, you'll know that a lot of times you don't feel motivated to do your job, right? You have to force yourself. And then, of course, after you force yourself, the motivation might actually increase. And so the mistake we make is we think about things like creative work or academic work or artistic work as being different from something like a job or exercising. But I would argue that really it's the same. That a lot of times what we need to do is to start by forcing ourselves to get started, even if it's a little bit unpleasant. And then in the process of forcing ourselves, or while we force ourselves, or right after we force ourselves, we might start to feel a little motivated. Like, okay, I wasn't really excited about writing this paper, but I forced myself to sit down and painfully crank out a few sentences or whatever. And now I'm actually feeling a little more motivated to go on, right? Now, does this, of course, mean that we never feel motivated? Like we never wake up in the morning just feeling, extremely energized and ready to go? No, we probably do. But if you're honest with yourself, that's pretty rare. Most days you don't wake up feeling, at least I don't, right? I don't on most days wake up just feeling wonderful and energized and ready to tackle everything. Usually I wake up feeling tired, wishing I had more time to sleep. And I
There
go
goes
about forcing
Macedon.
myself to get started with my day, and then usually in the process of forcing myself, I end up developing motivation, right? So really it's action that comes first, and then motivation grows as a result of action. And then you're able to create or engage in even more action once you've gotten started, right? So this is the idea of putting the cart before the horse. It's a mistake to sit around waiting to feel motivated. Instead, we should force ourselves to act in order to develop that initial motivation, which will then hopefully grow over time. Right? All right.
Sir.
And of course, any questions you have,
Yes.
like I said, feel free to interrupt me in the chat box or by
Without
meeting.
delay.
But that's the first main idea.
Without delay.
Number 2, the mastery model. So this is another seemingly silly question, right? Do you think being smarter makes academic work, like homework, papers you have to write, reading, easier? Does being smarter make your work easier? Help me out. Answer again in the chat. This is what I said about how I kind of enlisted.
Yeah, makes things easier.
Let's see, what are folks saying? Folks are saying no, so they're on to my little trick, right? Because yeah, I mean, if you think about it, on the surface, it would seem like that's probably true, right? If you're more intelligent, whatever that means, then in theory, your academic work is easier, right? But again, I think a lot of people think of this the wrong way. They tend to think that someone who we think of as like a great genius, like an Albert Einstein type person, that someone like Albert Einstein probably doesn't need to work really hard because he's so, he's not around anymore, right? He died in 1965. But during his lifetime, he didn't have to work so hard because he was so smart. But if you read about the biography of Albert Einstein, you'll find out that he worked a tremendous amount. In order to be, I mean, he was really brilliant, but he had to work really, really hard to turn that brilliance into products and insights and papers and that sort of thing. This relates back to what I was saying about the professional athlete, right? You think the professional athlete finds it easier to do ab crunching? Well, they probably do a lot of them, so they could probably more easily do 100 of them than the average person, right? If you took an average person, told them to do 100 ab crunches, and you took a professional athlete, the athlete would probably find it easier, but that's just because they do more all the time. Any particular ab crunch is still probably, I would imagine, not particularly fun for the athlete to do. And I think academic stuff is the same way, or it has the same sort of feature. So take these 2 examples. These are 2 stories. The first one's pretty famous. The last one's not as. The second one, I mean, is not as famous. But we don't have to read this all. But the first story is about the famous mathematician Gauss, right? And the story goes, and nobody really knows if this is a true story or if it really happened. But it's one of those legends about the great mathematician Gauss, right? So the story goes that when he was a kid, his school teacher wanted some free time to grade papers or grade exams or something. So he gave the class an assignment that he thought would take them a really long time. He told them to add up all the numbers from 1 to 100. He thought this would take them at least an hour, and so then he could have some time to score his exams. But the little boy Gauss spent like 5 minutes thinking about it and walked up and told the teacher the answer, right? And he showed the teacher this method he figured out, where he realized that, if you start with the whole list from 1 to 100, if you look at the ends of the list, the 1 and the 100 adds up to 101. Then the next number, 2, you can match that up with 99. That adds up to 101. And then 3 and 98, and so on. So he realized that if you paired up the numbers from the beginning of the list to the end of the list, they'd all equal 101 or 101. And then he realized that you basically run out of numbers once you got to 50, right? Because you'd have 49 and 50 or whatever it is, right? Or no, I guess 50 and 51, right? You'd have a pair of 50 and 51. You'd add those up, that'd be 101. So he realized there were 50 pairs, so he multiplied 50 times 101, and he got the right answer, which is 5,050. So he did this really quickly and showed the teacher, annoyed the teacher, because the teacher was hoping to have more free time, right? And so the point I'm trying to make here is this is how a lot of people think that it's like to be a genius. Like brilliant, smart people just go through life coming up with quick and easy hacks that make everything that's so difficult for us mere mortals simple and easy for them, right? But what I'm going to argue is that this first example is really not what it's like for most people, even for really brilliant people. So take this other example. This is some writing by a gentleman named Benoit, who was a friend of Isaac Newton, the famous physicist, right? And he writes about how Isaac Newton, when he first took Descartes' book on geometry, he was trying to read this book on geometry, how Isaac Newton, the great genius who invented calculus and discovered the law of gravitation and the laws of motion, that he had a really hard time reading the book. He reported to his friend that he read the first few pages, then he got confused, then he had to stop, start over, read again, Then he got a little bit farther until he got confused again. And once he got confused again, he had to stop, start from the beginning, reread again. And so, to me, this was really heartening, because this is the kind of thing that most students will struggle with when they're trying to learn a difficult topic, right? They'll have to stop and go back and review and restart. So reading that Isaac Newton talked about this same problem with his friend, that he went through that same process that most of us do, that was really enlightening to me, because it made me realize, like, once again, that even these brilliant people have to do the same difficult steps we do to learn, right? They're only human. They still have to go through the difficult process of understanding a concept and making it part of their own mental toolkit. And so I think the second story is a lot more like what it's like for most people most of the time, right? In other words, intellectual work or writing or anything else we have to get done is hard work. And so we sometimes procrastinate because we start trying to do the task, and we find that
Alright, I gotta fight this guy now.
and then we get upset because we think it shouldn't be difficult. And if it is difficult, it means we're not smart enough to do it. And that's just not true, as the story of Isaac Newton shows. So that's what I say here, right? We often wrongly suppose that productive people find work easy. They don't face frustration, setbacks, or problems like the rest of us do. And of course, that's completely false. And so one way we can overcome this is to start adopting what's called a coping model. In other words, we accept that self-doubt and problems, unanticipated issues or problems are always going to arise whenever we're doing any kind of important work, like academic work. And that's just a part of life. These problems are a part of life. And so what we need to do is accept that fact and view them as a natural part of the process. So whenever we think about doing a task that we have to get done, we should just assume that there's going to be some problems and barriers that will come up. Like, assume that it won't go perfectly. Right? And that's, of course, a different view to this mastery model. The mastery model is, oh, if I was a master or if I was genius, this would all be easy for me. Right? So another reason, number 3, that people procrastinate, right? They fear failure. So this is this idea that if we base our self-esteem on our achievements, it might be actually difficult to be productive, because if, let's say I start trying to perform a task and it doesn't go well, then that basically means there's something wrong with me, right? I'm a loser, or I'm failing at it. Or we could worry that other people will regard us as failure. So it's a lot easier then to not tackle the task, right? Because if my self-esteem is based on what I achieve, and if doing a task runs the risk of me failing, then it's better to not even try to do the task at all, because then I don't, run the risk of failing, and I don't feel like a loser, right? And so this is an example of what the cognitive therapists call a cognitive distortion. Right? It's a sort of distorted way of thinking, or an informal thinking. Right? And so let me just do a little bit of an aside on cognitive distortions. Right? These are reasoning fallacies about ourselves and our emotions that we often, as people, have. I say we because they're very, very common, and people have them with all kinds of things. Right? Here are some examples of cognitive distortion. So a common one is all or nothing thinking. That's where you're thinking about a topic that's not necessarily a black and white issue, but you're regarding it as a black and white issue, right? You're thinking in black and white terms. So for example, if you say to yourself, I have to get say 100% on this paper, because if I don't, I'm an idiot, right? Or I'm a failure, or I'm a loser. That's all or nothing thinking, because you're basically saying there's only 2 options: complete success or complete failure, right? Either I get the 100%, which shows that I'm a success, or I fail, I don't get the 100%, which means I'm a complete failure. But of course, there's a lot of different options between 100% and 0, right? And of course, it's also difficult to even imagine what life would be like if you were a complete failure. What does it mean to be a complete failure at every possible thing? So that's why this is considered a cognitive distortion.
Can you get over there?
Distorted thought. Right? And so I list some examples here. Let me also share this handout with you. Stop sharing the screen for just a moment so I can plot that into the chat. We're going to use the handout later in the activity, so I'm going to share it with you right now. This is a handout of the 10 most common cognitive distortions. And if you're watching this video later on my website, I'll have the handout posted in the video on the same page. So I just put this handout in the chat, which lists the 10 most common cognitive distortions. A useful handout to have, right? But so in the case of fear of failures, we have these distortions of what you might call mind reading and labeling. Labeling is when you insult yourself. You say you're a loser, or you're a fool, or you're stupid. Those are sort of distorted labels, because if you think about it, as I said a moment ago, what would it mean to actually be a loser who fails at everything? Well, it would mean that, you know, you're not capable of putting on your shirt, you're not capable of getting on the bus or driving to work, school. You have to really be a failure at everything, right? That's what the word means. And of course, I'm sure none of you here completely fail at every single thing you do, so that's obviously a distorted label, right? Mind reading is this idea that there's no way of thinking. If I don't do perfectly on this paper, the professor's going to think I'm an idiot. That's the fallacy of mind reading. It's the fallacy of the continuous evidence of these things. Hopefully that all makes sense. Can everybody see the screen again? The slide that says fear of failure? So like, obviously, stop sharing for a moment. Yes, perfect, okay. I only asked because in the past it wasn't that problem. I'm recording not sure if the slides that I'm using. So I'm glad that it's well, let me know if you have any questions at any point, but hopefully this all makes sense. So let's move to the next topic then. So we talked about fear of failure. And so, well, before we move on, let's just say that our goal with the fear of failure idea then is we should recognize that we don't have to equate our self-worth with our achievements, right? In other words, we could choose, this is the value you adopt, right? You could choose to have the value that says, my value as a person is only as good as those things I achieve, or you can adopt a different value, right? A value like, regardless of what I achieve, I still have value as a person. It doesn't mean you can't pursue success. You can still say, my goal is to achieve highly. I'm going to seek as hard as I can to achieve highly. But when I have occasional failures, I'm not going to automatically assume that means that I'm worthless as a person, because that makes the false or distorted assumption that one's worth as a person can only be understood in terms of how many achievements you have. Which, if you think about it, doesn't really make sense, right? I mean, suppose you imagine someone like say, a nice old grandma who never went to college, but is very kind and has raised multiple children and grandchildren, and she's friendly and wise and supportive and she's a great cook and these sort of things. Now, you could say that person had no academic achievements, so I guess they were a complete loser and a failure and an idiot. But most of us wouldn't say that. Most of us would regard that person as being a wonderful, positive person. So it must be that her worth is not just measurable in terms of her academic achievements, right? And so the question we should ask then is, well, why do we do that to ourselves? Assume that our own self can only get, say, our academic achievements. If we don't achieve highly academically at any particular moment, right? If we experience some kind of failure, therefore that means we're a worthless loser, right? When you think of it in those terms, it starts to seem kind of absurd. Questions, comments, or concerns about this point? As always, questions can arise, feel free to list them in the chat, and we can go back to the question about something I said earlier. Don't hesitate to share it, and we'll go back to that. So, related to the value that destructive productivity to our procrastination is this idea.
There we go.
Right? We might convince ourselves that we have to do everything perfectly, or that there's some special reward for being the best at it. So now that we've talked a little bit about cognitive distortions, why don't we practice this a little bit? I gave you the handout in the chat. Maybe if you're able to, open that handout up and take a look at it, and let's discuss what cognitive distortions could be present in this idea that I have here on the slide, this idea of defense. In other words, the thought that we have to do everything perfectly, or that there's some special benefit or reward for being the best. Take a look at the list of cognitive distortions, and then maybe let me know, either by unmuting yourself or by writing in the chat, what are the possible cognitive distortions in that thought? Let's see, we got something here in the chat box. Somebody says all or nothing thinking. Yeah, that's absolutely right. Here's a little bit of a hint too. These kind of thoughts usually have multiple distortions in them. All or nothing thinking is almost always one of them. So why is this one all or nothing thinking? Well, because basically there's only two options: perfectly, or perfectly well, say, or perfectly badly. Right? So it's either complete success or complete failure. And so we want to be a success, so we have to do a complete success. We can't have a partial success, according to this reasoning, right? So that's, of course, all or nothing thinking, right? Very good. What other ones might be present? Let's see. We've got some other folks. We've got magnification or minimization. Yeah, I think that's definitely relevant, right? So the idea is, and you might have a different interpretation, but how I'm seeing it is, for example, if I do something and it's not perfect, there's some imperfection there, I blow that up out of proportion and say, oh, this is now terrible, there's some really horrible flaws, right? Or I might also minimize my my positive contributions. Like, let's say I write a paper and there's you know, let's say it's got some strengths and weaknesses, right? Like maybe the introduction's really good. Maybe I know that I had some trouble with the discussion part or something, and then I'll say to myself, "Oh, this is really terrible because it's not perfect." So in other words, you're magnifying the flaws and you're minimizing the positives, saying, "Oh, but the flaws are huge and they destroy it, so it's not perfect," and that makes it bad. And whatever positive things I did, like the introduction or whatever, well, that was fine, but that's not good enough to make it a good paper. So yeah, I agree. I think minimization is definitely one of the distortions involved in this perfectionistic belief. Very good. What else? Any other ones?
Sire,
I think you can get several. You can find several distortions in this thought, right?
victory! Forward!
Let's suggest one that might not be obvious. So the idea that there's some special reward for being the best, that seems to be future-oriented, right? You're saying something good will happen in the future if I have a perfect paper. So anytime you're imagining that you're predicting the future, that's kind of a jumping to conclusions distortion, right? The distortion of jumping to conclusions, specifically the one called fortune telling. Fortune telling is one type of jumping to conclusion. Jumping to conclusions simply means that you reach a conclusion you don't have evidence for, and fortune telling is when you do that about the future. You assume you know what's going to happen in the future. Let's see here. Someone else said mental filter. Yeah, I agree. Mental filter is where you focus on only one aspect, usually a negative aspect of something, right? And you only notice that negative aspect and don't notice any of the positive aspects. So again, this might be the idea that, you know, I have to do everything perfectly because there's some, let's say I'm under pressure. This is a big assignment. I need to get a decent grade on it to get a decent grade in the class. So I only focus on that one issue, and then I assume that means I have to do it perfectly, which of course is a fool's errand because, you know, nothing can really be perfect, right? What would perfect mean? It has no flaws at all. That seems like a really unrealistic level, right? Really unrealistic target. Create something with no flaws. I would argue that nobody has ever done that in human history, right? If you think of any great work, you can find some flaw in it. Right? This is really good. I'm glad people are engaging with the distortions on the list. Any other ones people want to share? It's, you know, we could probably find almost all of them in this thought. But any other ones that come to mind with this perfectionistic thought?
Regretfully, we must decline. Regretfully, we must decline.
I carry your word.
I would suggest there's probably also an unstated should statement here, right? Or maybe actually it is stated, right? You say we have to do. We have to do is the same as we should do and must do. Haves and should and musts. These are all should statements, right? It's the idea that we motivate ourselves with this, that we must do certain things.
Mm-hmm. Thought that was a
Now,
paved
of course,
road, but it doesn't look like it.
legitimate forms of should.
Just
which I'll
look
get to
paved
a
in the
little bit
night.
later in the presentation. But probably this is good enough for now. But I'm glad we were practicing identifying some of the distortions. That's a very important thing that'll come back a little bit later. All right. So notice I should always establish too that perfectionism is not the same thing as the healthy pursuit of excellence. So the idea here is not that you have to choose between being mediocre or being like an intense perfectionist. You can still pursue success, but you want to pursue it in a healthy way. So this table from Burns' book, 10 Days to Self-Esteem, talks about the differences, right? So the idea with perfectionism is that it's something that makes you feel stressed out and you fear failure, right? Because you have this huge burden.
What is that random Greek army doing
there? So that's
there?
not healthy, right? Whereas
that must be the guy who
healthy
beat
pursuit
back
of
a couple
excellence
turns
should be
ago.
a pursuit of excellence that makes you feel creative and enthusiastic. You feel good about doing a good job, right? With perfectionism, you're never satisfied with your accomplishments, no matter how good of work you do. No matter how good it is, you still tell yourself, oh, it wasn't that good, it could have been better. Whereas with the healthy pursuit of excellence, when you do a good job, you give yourself credit for it, and you feel, yeah, that went really well. I'm really happy that I had this success, you know? With perfectionism, you feel this intense need to impress other people and get them to respect you or like you or give you positive feedback. With the healthy pursuit of excellence, you might enjoy positive feedback, but you don't need it in order to feel accomplished. You can feel accomplished just on your own because you know you did a good job, even if other people don't give you credit for it, right? With perfectionism, if you make a mistake, you feel like a loser or a failure or a stupid person. With a healthy pursuit of excellence, you know that some mistakes are inevitable, that as part of the process of being excellent, you're going to mess up sometimes or make errors as a part of the learning process. And you see it that way. You see, I messed up here, but that was part of my learning process, so I'm not going to beat myself up over it, right? With perfectionism, you think you always have to be perfect or strong. With the healthy pursuit of excellence, you're not afraid to be vulnerable.
I'm making progress into Zidane.
Right? So again, just to hammer home the point, this isn't the idea that I'm saying you should give up your pursuit of excellence and you should just decide that you're not going to try to achieve.
Welcome, friend.
Definitely, that's not the goal here. In fact, that's what motivates a lot of people to become perfectionists, right? Because they think, oh, the only way for me to be successful is to be
quick.
this intense
Our
perfectionist.
patience is limited.
And so what we want to realize
Regretfully,
is a healthy
we
way
must
to pursue
decline.
excellence that doesn't create all the misery and frustration of perfectionism, right? Which, again, this is tied to our not getting stuff done. Because if we have this huge burden of perfectionism, then it sounds like there's no point in even starting the task, right? Because if I start the task and it's not perfect, I'm a complete failure and a loser, so why even get started? It's better to avoid the whole thing. Another reason, this is reason number 5 we might procrastinate, is that we don't give ourselves credit for our achievements. That's something we just talked about on the previous slide, right? So here's an example, right?
Alright, I think Armenia will be done after I take the second settlement of theirs. I don't think they own anything else.
I shouldn't work on that because I have no good ideas. And even if I did publish a paper, there'd be nothing original or worthwhile in it, right? My ideas are stupid and unimportant, so what will be the point, right? So this is the distortion of discounting the positive, right? Where you're taking something that's potentially positive and you're turning it into a negative, right? So in this case, this person is talking about ideas they actually have that might go for a journal article, that might contribute to a journal article. Now that's a positive thing to have interesting ideas that you might develop in a publication. But they're turning it into a negative. They're saying, oh, see, those are not good ideas. Even though those are my original ideas, they're trash and aren't worthwhile. And so obviously this can also make us procrastinate, right? If we're always being too hard on ourselves or telling us that our work is trash or our ideas are trash, then it doesn't motivate you to keep working, right? It makes you think, what's the point? Why should I do anything? All of my stuff is garbage, right? And so highly productive people who get a lot of stuff done, they know when to give themselves positive rewards and affirmations, rewarding themselves emotionally or materially for making progress and completing tasks, right? So, of course, rewarding yourself could be an emotional or mental thing where you just tell yourself, that was a great job.
What do I have? Hillman? Okay, I'm pretty sure I can beat these. Okay, they've got their heavy spearmen on there.
Whatever. It can also be a physical reward. You buy yourself something nice or decide to go out to the movies to celebrate or something like that. But either way, it's important to recognize when you have had successes, because if you don't, if you're always telling yourself everything I do is just mediocre or it's bad, then you're not reinforcing this idea of progress and working hard being a positive thing that's enjoyable. Instead, it's just this whole process of misery and frustration. Notice this quote from David Burns right here. He says, only your thoughts can make you feel good or bad. If you never give yourself credit, you will feel that you can never do anything well enough to satisfy yourself, so it will become pointless to try. Why keep banging your head against the wall, right? If you never do anything good enough, what's the point of continuing to try, right? So this is the idea of the importance of giving ourselves rewards so that we can make them try. All right. Should statements, right? This is another reason why we might procrastinate or not make progress. And this is one of those distorted thoughts, and I've mentioned it before, and I said we'd get to it, so now here we're getting to it, right? So let's discuss briefly, what's wrong with this statement? In other words, why is it distorted or
The siege towers are at the
I really
enemy
should
walls!
study more.
Now your
If I
men
go to
must
full-time
open a way
studying,
to the
I'll be
city!
better in my courses. What's wrong with that, or what's distorted about that?
March!
I'll admit, too, on the surface, it doesn't sound distorted. If I'm studying more, I'd probably do better. What do you think? Help me out here. Let's discuss it. Somebody got some stuff in the chat. Let's see here.
The cowardly enemy
So
have
studying
lost the
doesn't mean better
walls!
grade.
Send your troops
That's
and
true,
take
right?
the
It's
rest
not
of the
automatically
settlement!
true that if I just spin my wheels more or do more studying, that I'll automatically get the result that I want. So that could be part of the distortion, right? That's a little bit of the maybe fortune telling. Another person says should statements and labeling. Yeah, I think that's present. I guess you're absolutely right. This is a should statement. That's what it says there on the screen too, so it better be. But I guess what I was trying to get to is why are should statements distorted? Like, what's distorted about them? I wanted to talk more about that. Well, here's my suggestion, right? And this, of course, again, is drawing on David Byrne. There are really only three legitimate types of should or must, right? You know, if you tell yourself you must do this, or you should do it, you ought to do it. There's really only three ways to do that are legitimate, and then the rest of them are distorted, right? So what are the legitimate ones? Well, the first one is moral, right? Like, thou shalt not kill, you know, thou shalt not...
Yep, they're done.
Steal personal possessions of your friends, or whatever. You know, all the things that we think of as moral rules. That's a legitimate type of should, right? It's where we tell ourselves we must do something, or we must not do something, because it's part of our moral beliefs. We think if we did those bad things, or didn't do certain good things, or vice versa, that this would make us a bad person. You know, the wrong thing to do. So that's a legitimate type of should statement, right? It's one that's not distorted. Another one is legal. Notice that legal is separate from moral. Moral, some laws may be moral, and maybe some laws are not moral. They're not about morals, it's just about behavior. But so the second type of legitimate should is a legal one. So let's say, you know, I could run this red light, it's late at night and there's nobody around, so it's not dangerous, I could just run the red light. But I probably shouldn't, because there might be a camera taking a picture, or there might be a cop around that's going to give me a ticket, right? So the legal type of should is a legitimate one, because if I'm trying to avoid legal punishment, it's better to avoid that behavior. Right? That's legal. And the last one is the law of nature, right? That's like, I must drink water sometimes, or other liquids. I must drink water or other liquids, because if I don't, I'll die of dehydration, right? That's the law of nature. That's a legitimate form of good, right? All the other ones are usually distortions. They're sort of like basically confusing a preference for a must. So, for example, suppose I said, you know, I really should be better at writing at this point in my life. That's really a distortion, because all you're saying is you
Your
prefer
siege towers have reached the walls! Now the enemy cannot hide behind these pitiful walls!
But you ask yourself, is there a moral reason why I have to be a better writer? Like, if I'm not a better writer at this point in my life, am I evil? Am I committing a moral crime? Well, no. Is it illegal to be a bad writer? Like, will I be thrown in jail? No, right? Is it a law of nature that if I go to school for a certain number of years, that I'm automatically disobeying writing? Well, no, people learn at different rates. Okay, so it's not one of the three legitimate types of should, so it's probably a distorted should, right? And so what we want to do is we want to reframe our should statement into preferences, or a statement like, it would be to my advantage, right? So instead of saying, I should study more, which is loaded with guilt and judgment, you could say, I prefer it to study more, or it would probably be to my advantage to study more, right? That's not distorted, it's recognizing the rest of the advantage, but it doesn't have that loaded guilt feeling of you should, and if you don't, you're bad. That's the idea of this. So it's framing it in terms of guilt versus framing it in terms of advantage. The last three of reasons why we procrastinate are all kind of related, so I'll just go over them quickly, right? These last three reasons are like passive aggressiveness, or unassertiveness, or coercion sensitivity, and they're all really the same. The idea is you might feel the pressure to be nice, and so we say yes. Right? Getting asked to do things, so we say yes to those things. And then sometimes we wish that we didn't say yes. We felt pressured to, we didn't want to be a bad person. So then we drag our feet and we don't do the work, because we're trying to be passive aggressive or some sort of passive way of resisting. Relatedly, we might feel that we have to say yes to everything because that's what a nice person does. Right? And so that's where, again, we're procrastinating because we should have said no. We were asked to do too much, but we didn't say no, and now we're procrastinating. Right? And the same thing with coercion sensitivity. This is where you're being pressured or hectored by something, like your parent or your spouse or your roommate or whatever is nagging you to do stuff, and so you say yes, but then you kind of rebel and you don't really procrastinate and you don't really want to do it. Which of course relates to the last reason why they sometimes don't want to do things, is they really just don't want to do them. Right? This happens a lot when people are in the wrong class or people in the wrong program sometimes. Because sometimes people join the wrong graduate program. They don't really like what they're doing in the program. It's not related to their goals or what they really wanted to do. And then they just have a really hard time doing the work because it's not really aligned with their passion, right? We can talk more about this, but I want to get to the techniques.
Your siege towers are at the enemy walls!
10 reasons why
Now your men must open a way into the
work and
city!
get our stuff done. So now the question is, well, what do we do about it, right? The first part was our mindset, the reason why. Now we'll talk about practices, right? So here's a five-step approach to changing our practices based on cognitive therapy, right? So step number one is just to identify a specific task we want to complete. Because the problem is sometimes when people are procrastinating or not getting their stuff done, they turn it into a sort of general malaise. Like they say, oh, there's just so much to do and I'm not getting any of it done. And that's not an effective way to do things, right? Because you're not focusing on any one specific task. You're just saying, oh, there's too much to do and I don't have time and I can't do it. Now I'm freaking out. But we want to zero in on a particular thing we have to get done. Because that's the only way we can actually take effective action, is to identify a particular task.
Alright, since these guys are exhausted,
identify a particular task that
pretty sure I can beat them now.
So why don't you all take a minute to do that? Like either on a piece of paper or in a Word document. Just really briefly jot down a particular task that you've been procrastinating on or avoiding. Say, okay, here's the task that I need to get started on. And notice that something like I procrastinate with everything is too vague. You don't want to do that. You want to identify some specific task. Like I need to start working on my literature review for my final paper. Or I need to start brainstorming a topic for my final paper.
Okay, this is now
or
our
I need to
gate.
start working on my statement of purpose for my PhD program. Whatever it is. Just take like 30 seconds, 10 to 30 seconds to identify a particular task that you want to get started on very soon.
Pikemen! Kill them! Pikemen! Phalanx pike! Kill them! Kill them! Kill them! Kill them! Phalanx pikemen! Phalanx pikemen! Phalanx pikemen!
Alright, in the interest of time, I'm probably going to go on, but if you're still taking a minute to write something down, that's perfectly fine. But step one is that we identify the task, the actual specific task that we want to do. That was sort of like our zero step, by the way. This is like our preliminary. Now, step one of the process, we're going to do a cost-benefit analysis. The question we're trying to answer is, should I stop procrastinating or putting it off and actually complete the task? And so, first we want to identify the advantages of putting it off. What are the benefits of not doing it, of procrastinating more? What are the benefits of that? So why don't you take a minute and just brainstorm a few of these, and then we'll talk about them.
Can you run, my guy?
Maybe we could pick a task too. Maybe does anyone want to volunteer a particular task or a type of task in the chat? And that'll be good because it'll help anchor a conversation. You can talk about the specific task. But maybe for one of you, it'll be the actual task you want to do. For everybody else, it'll be just an example. Let's see, somebody says homework. But what's a specific homework? Like, what is it? Is it a paper you have to write? Is it reading? Be more specific. Let's see, they say, start reading some articles for homework. Okay, yeah, let's do that. I have a bunch of articles I have to read as part of my homework. So, let's talk about the advantages of procrastinating.
Come on, look into those spears, you Eminos.
We talk about both. So let's say,
Yep.
I have to start reading some articles, or I have to start doing revisions of my thesis. What are the benefits of not doing it? What are the benefits of avoiding it? Let's discuss. It's always good to be writing these things down because it helps you to identify your thoughts, address them, but let's discuss. What are the benefits of not starting? Unprepared. But that's a negative thing. But I want to talk about the benefits. What's the benefit of putting it off? I'm not going to start reading the paper. Paper is for class. What's the benefit? More free time, absolutely, right. I have free time in other things. I'm not wasting it reading those stupid papers.
He's gone.
Not,
Probably back to his palaces
or in the
and
case of the
rough
revisions, I'm not
rituals.
working on those revisions, right?
Enemy king is
Not
slain.
having to confront
This
new
will
and
run like
difficult tasks,
wildfire
right?
to the
Exactly.
enemy and
Right?
bring
It's a
despair.
difficult task I'm not looking forward to. A benefit, so I just avoid that, right? I can spend more time on my other classes, right? On my current classes. I don't have to worry about this other project. Yeah, that's true. These are all benefits, right? Very good. Remember we talked about fear of failure? So it could be I don't have to worry about failing, right? Maybe if I start trying to work on this task and it turns out to be difficult, if I avoid the task, I don't have to worry about that. I don't run the risk of failing, right? More time to hang out with my sister. Yeah, that's true, right? So these are all the benefits of procrastinating. Procrastinating is a hard word to say. Other ones? This is all great. You guys are you're all hitting on exactly what I'm talking about. Any other advantages?
Attack!
I think this is a great starting list, right? So this is part of the reason why we do this activity is to get you to understand why it is we might procrastinate, right? There's actually some benefits to it. That's why we do it, right? It's fun. It's enjoyable. It allows us to avoid difficulty. So now let's flip it around and let's say, well, here are some possible ones, right? These are ones we talked about. It's easy. I can avoid hard work. These are all benefits of putting off the assignment or not doing it. You can do something else instead. You don't have to risk failure. It might confer status too. We didn't mention this one, but like I'm the special kind of person that doesn't need to work hard. Like I'm a genius or whatever. I don't need to work hard. This comes to me. I can sort of pretend that I'm that kind of person. Even though, as we said before, people like that probably don't really exist, right? In the case of these pressure to do stuff, you can get back at people who are nagging you. Like my mom keeps nagging me to do my assignment, or my husband or wife keeps nagging me to finish my degree. And I don't need to do what they tell me. I'm going to blow it off. You know, that'll be a big middle finger to them, my family members who are harassing me.
Okay.
Or you can limit people to
Getting a little
so many demands on you, right?
very specific example.
Demands on you. So if you don't get stuff done, you're sort of showing them, look, I have too much to do. So stop giving me more stuff. I keep busy with the priority matter, right? These are all possible advantages. So then the question is, of course, with all these advantages, why should you stop procrastinating, right? So there's a possibility. Possibility one is that you should, right? Maybe your advantages are telling you that you're doing things exactly the way you want them to. Maybe everything's fine and you don't need to stop procrastinating. The other possibility is that your procrastination, even though it offers advantages, also offers even the worst disadvantages. So that's what we're going to flip it around. Let's talk about the disadvantages. So what are the disadvantages of procrastination? We talked about the advantages. What are the negatives?
Awaiting your command! Phalanx pikemen, kill them!
Again, let's discuss some range game.
Orders completed, Great Lord!
I think for me it's like you let everything accumulate and then everything piles up. And now you're left with a whole lot of books.
Yeah, so you let things pile up and then you have too much work to do. Maybe you don't get some of the things done in time, which is one of the other problems, like delaying of graduation, or delaying the course, or whatever it is. Both performance at work, whatever. Okay, yeah, that's a good point, right? So, it's not meeting our goals, I think that's all really accurate, right? What else? Other disadvantages. Maybe the procrastination. That was great. Other things along these lines. Let's go back to our specific example. Like we were talking about either starting reading some articles or homework, I think, and doing revisions on the pieces. Let's say I don't do them right. Wait a really long time to do them. What are the disadvantages then? Eventually having to get things done really frantically, right? I've ran out of time, so now I have to finish everything really fast in a very small amount of time. And that could be both stressful and lead to me not doing my best, right? I could probably have done a better job, but because I had to rush, I didn't have any time, it turned out not as good as it could have been. Yeah, I agree. That's true. More stress, right? Exactly. More stress. So it might seem like if I put it off, I'm not so stressed because I can do other things.
Yep.
It could be that
Stuck between a rock and a hard place, lads. Yep, that's a spear sandwich if I've ever seen one.
other disadvantages.
Yep, those heavy spearmen were not long for this world.
You have other ones you want to so here's an example. This is from David Burnley's book about.
God, they got a
these are
lot
the
of casualties on me.
Just
Bloody
something
hell.
simple like cleaning up their desk, which is all cluttered and has a bunch of stuff piled on it, right? So they have the advantages. I can do something else I want to do. Cleaning my desk seems like a hideous chore. If I put it out of my mind, I won't have to think about it. These are the advantages. Then they have disadvantages. I feel guilty every time I look at the messy desk. I feel disorganized and I lose respect for myself. I can't find the things that I need. It looks like
Boy, that was like the Battle of Berlin right there. There's way too many casualties, but we finally got rid of the thorn in our side that was Armenia all game.
Now,
freaking 39 turns in. Wish I could have done it sooner, lads, but I mean, believe me, but
if you just talked about it,
nope.
If you're doing this by yourself, it might be good to actually write them down, like jot them down briefly. So you have your advantages and you have your disadvantages. You'd want to basically weight them. Which ones do you think are more serious? It's not always about the number. Like in this case, there's 5 disadvantages and 3 advantages. So it could be that there's just more of one or the other. But sometimes you end up with a long list of advantages, but they're all minor advantages. And maybe you only have 2 disadvantages, but they seem really big to you. So the
Alright guys, I gotta get going here.
The number or the size.
That's gonna do it for part 3 here.
Some sort of value. Say, which one do I think, for me personally, looking at this list, which one outweighs the other? Are the advantages more weighty?
Armenia finally destroyed.
Or are the disadvantages?
I'm gonna leave the game as is. I've got business to take care of here.
And that's, of course, something that only you can decide as an individual, right? You can look at the situation and
did I never make a save for
think
Pontus
there's
very
more
hard?
disadvantages or advantages.
I think this is it.
Procrastinating.
Yeah, this has to be it. Okay.
You're here today at a time management
Pontus
workshop.
turned 27, even though that's
you're going to
not
fall
right.
in line with the disadvantages. You're probably going to agree that there's too many disadvantages of procrastinating. That's why you're here. But you do want to be honest with yourself, because it could be
guys.
that maybe your procrastination
Thanks for watching.
is not the end of the world.
Sorry for all the phone interruptions.
But at the last minute, you get everything
I'm gonna
done,
leave
and
this
that's
meeting
fine.
here.
There's nothing wrong with that if it works for you, right?
Guys, sorry for all those phone interruptions. That was not planned. I'll have to trim that on YouTube for your viewing convenience. But nonetheless, a decent part 3. Made some progress against Egypt and Armenia there. Things are looking up for Pontus. Finally figured out how to play them. Now, we're on the home stretch, I think, to making more money and having more troops and getting our best troops out there on the field. Alright, have a good one, everybody.